Hi everybody, I'm Chris Smith. Thanks for bearing with me while we wrap up here. There will be no doom and gloom. The world is not coming to an end. You are not being hacked, right? Let's start there. So I thought probably the most important part was to start out and tell you a little bit about, me, a little bit about the company and what we do, and then let's dig into really what home automation or integration is. Get rid of some of the semantics, and I'm here to answer questions afterwards if you like. So a little bit about me. I am Chris Smith. I've been doing this, I just did the math, 17 years. Wow, seems like a long time. I started out doing this pulling wires through attics, down below crawl spaces, getting dirty, getting sweaty. And as I stand here today in New York City humidity, the answer is I'm still doing the same thing apparently. So I got into this because I thought technology was really cool, because I was a do-it-yourselfer. And we're actually going to talk about DIY in a minute for a moment. But what we really want to talk about is how we bring technology to other people's homes. We're fortunate enough to have a clientele that pays us to not have to be your own CIO. The customers that do business with integration firms want to come home and lead a peaceful life because they lead stressful lives at work. They don't want to manage their technology. They don't want to manage their networks. They don't want to go and figure out every little tiny box that they have to buy to bolt together to make some hodgepodge of something that kind of looks a little bit like an automation package that never really works and they're constantly working on. I'm like that. When I get done with my day at a company that does this, that's the last thing I want to do, and I know how to do it. None of you know how to do that, and it's the last thing you want to do either. You don't want to manage your router. You don't want to call some tech support place in some foreign land. You don't want to figure out why it is that your lights aren't working. So while all these little interesting consumer technologies are fantastic, it's great, it brings awareness, it brings ideas to people, it furthers the concept. The problem is, do you want to know when that Sylvania light doesn't work? When the light switch is actually off, and you go lights on, and the lights don't work, and you go, oh crap, let me go. So that's not good, right? It's that simple. That's the Achilles heel. So we sell systems that work every time, all the time, every time. And you pay through the nose for it so that you don't have to worry about it, because we do. And we employ 30 people sitting in Union Square to do all of the various types of technologies. Phone systems, lighting, shades, climate control, security, information technology. All of our systems sit on an enterprise-grade network in your house. That network is $15,000 and up. Why? Because when that network goes down, so does everything else. So, can you use your ASUS router at your house? No, you cannot. Why? Because if it doesn't work all the time, it's just like it works none of the time. So, what we're going to talk about today are all these types of technologies, and I kind of got off topic here about me being the speaker, but it really came from sitting through every version of every new technology and seeing customers try and be bleeding edge and failing at it miserably and hating the systems that are in their house. What a bummer. So let's talk about the company. So I've been in this for 17 years. The company's only been around for 15. I used to work for an integrator out in Southern California. The CEO of Verizon's house, we did his place. Oprah Winfrey's house, we did her place. Those kinds of homes were what we worked on. And when I moved to New York, I moved here working for a vendor, an electronics company. And over the last 10 years, I'd spent all of my time dealing with integrators throughout the US and Canada. So when we talk about the top 100 customers that are buying these products and putting them throughout homes for those that can afford it, we were dealing with those business units day in and day out. I got to deal with a company called Cloud9 Smart when they were helping us with a project, and they did a fantastic job integrating technology through a 13,000 square foot townhouse. It was 5 stories, had a rooftop terrace, it's down in Soho, has an indoor pool, the place is beautiful. And we put shades and lighting and security and audio and video all throughout it and hid it. I want you to look up at your ceiling right now. It's about the ugliest thing I've ever seen, right? It's got tons of stuff in it, big thick trims, big lights, big giant ugly speakers. This is what most people think of when they put technology in their house. Go ahead and look at the sides of your walls, by the way, where these columns are on this side and over here. See these big banks of plates? This is what we call wall acne. Wall acne is awful. It makes your house ugly. When you walk into a room that we design, there is a single gang, one tiny switch with 4 buttons on it, on, dim, off, and shade. When you walk out the door, that same 4-button keypad says on, shade, home, and away. That's it. When you sit by your bed at night, there's a good night button, and then there's a bathroom button, so it lights your path to the bathroom in the evening. That's it. This is how simple we make systems for people. Why? Because all that stuff that you want to bolt on to try and make all your house do all these things is actually going to complicate your life, not make it easier. So why don't we talk about the concept? What are people bolting together? Lighting. When we talk about lighting, we're not just talking about replacing a bulb in a fixture. We're talking about actually integrating an entire lighting system. If I do a solution like what we're talking about, I still have 4, 5, 6 switches sitting on my wall. That's ugly. We do one keypad, one. And what we actually do is we tie all those lighting loads back to a panel that you never see, that you never touch. And each panel controls various specific lights the way you want them. Every time, 100% of the time, guaranteed, with a redundant fail-safe processor. How much will a lighting system cost you like that? The answer is they start pretty inexpensively. You can go find one at Home Depot by a company called Lutron. We sell Lutron. Lutron sells through Home Depot a product called Caseta. It's pretty cheap, $100, $200. It is not the same level. You can buy a Honda Civic or you can buy a Bugatti. They both have doors and wheels, right? They are not the same car, right? So Lutron makes several different layers. You've got things like Caseta at the entry level. Compare the touch and feel of Caseta and the functionality to it to their step-up Radio Raw2. Significantly improved product, hugely valuable. And then compare it to HomeWorks QS. What will a HomeWorks QS system cost most customers? About 50 grand, right? This is how you control an entire home, just for lights and shades. So let's just talk about lighting for a minute, right? There's a huge spectrum. So always be thinking about that. Shades. Lots of people in New York City live in a building that faces some other building, and they've seen something on the other side of that other building they don't want to see, because that person didn't have their shades down, right? So one way to put in shades is to have manual shades. I've got some in my apartment. They are awful, right? Just awful. Some people put in these manual shades that are rollers. Oh, they at least look better. We actually install mechanical shades that are wired back to a panel that are dead silent. And in fact, when you have a window, which some of our customers do, that are 10 or 12 banks long that look over the park, those shades move up and down at exactly the same time, at exactly the same position. And when they're adjusted, the home automation system knows exactly where they are. So if the customer wants to return them there, that's the way they work. Then we start thinking about what are those materials? Well, all the shades that we have available to us can be in Roman, they can be in roller, they can be in blackout, they can be in solar. All of these different types of things we cover with our clients before they ever get implemented into a project. We'll talk about the engineering behind it. Climate. So we have never had a thermostat hacked, ever. But what I will say is nobody puts in thermostats anymore. If you know better, you actually put in a sensor the size of a quarter on your wall, and only your phone controls your thermostat. This is a panelized thermostat system, and you can only do it when you're tearing your house apart, when you're gut renoing, when you're starting new construction. So always be thinking that really what we will call DIY products or Home Depot level products, what they're trying to do is to be this, just like a Honda Civic is trying to be a Bugatti, and they fall drastically short. So realize that home automation has this big spectrum, right? Let's talk about security. Security can be a few things. It can be throwing a door lock. Hey, lock the door. Great. Our system does that, no problem. They can be actually tying into a security system, arm, disarm, right? Call the police department, those kinds of things. And it can be things like security cameras. So people have seen things like Nest cams, right? Well, that's a security camera. It is not. When we install a security camera, it is literally a Cat5 cable that runs back to a network somewhere, and that's all that's there. If you install a Nest Cam, you better have an outlet right next to it, because that's what you need to run a Nest Cam. None of our clients want to see that in their house, and they especially don't want to see 12 of them, right? So when we start to think about these things, drastic differences in what it could look like for somebody. Audio. I own Sonos at home. It is a fantastic product, and it's even better when you plug it into a truly amazing audio system. But Sonos is really closed, but this is the consumer level version. The audio systems we install in houses can have invisible speakers, speakers that look like little tiny lights, speakers that look like landscape lighting, and they're amazing sounding things that if you've never heard them, you're missing out, right? All we get in this life is time, how well we spend it, the quality of the food that we eat, the quality of the bed that we sleep in, the quality of the job we go to, and the quality of the music that we listen to is what drives our happiness every day. Video, the quality of the video that you see on your TV. So Roku is a streaming service. It's talking about bringing content up to the panel. But what about the actual quality of the video on the panel? People are buying these drastically inexpensive television sets thinking that they're actually getting an amazing service until they see a truly amazing television that costs $7 grand and they go, oh. So there are scales of these things again, and we want to talk about how all those work. Different customers buy different levels and certain parts of this. So let's talk about who buys what from us. Almost all of our customers will buy some level of audio and video and then overarching automation. About 75% of them buy lighting and shades from us. That's quite a bit. The overarching automation platform is what incorporates all these things together and brings them into one app. So if anybody's ever heard of Apple HomeKit, Apple HomeKit is trying to do that. We've heard about companies who are always going to be these game changers, and I've heard about them for 17 years. It was one thing when I only heard about it for 2, 3, or 4 years, right? But now that I've heard it for almost 2 decades, the answer is I'll believe it when I see it. I don't ever want to be the guy who's the newspaper delivery truck guy, right? Who is now completely out of work. But for as long as I've seen, the actual integration of all of these technologies is highly complicated. So when Ron says that it's truly complicated, he's right. Can you go buy consumer technology that does one of these things well? For sure. Can you buy consumer technology that maybe does 2 different things well and they touch each other? Yes. Will they do what all this does when we're done with it? Not by a long shot. Interfaces. How do people control the things that we just talked about? Well, so most people are used to a remote control, right? It's got some buttons on it. That is still a fantastic way to control stuff, by the way. The answer is when I'm sitting there, hitting the volume up button and down button without having to look at it is fantastic. Hitting the channel up, down button, fantastic. Super easy, right? What about touch interfaces? iPhones, iPads, all those things, your watch. All those things are really great interfaces, but you have to look at them. The true benefit is that they come in dynamic fashion. They can change based upon what you're controlling. We think that touch interfaces are really, really quite good. Voice control. Alexa, do this. Siri, do that. Fantastic. Up until the point where Siri tells you, Mr. Smith, I don't want to go to Iceland. And you're like, I didn't say that. So everyone has seen when technology doesn't work. So it's always about how do we integrate these things, not just so that it happens. It's not about checking off a box on a spec sheet. It's about actually doing it well. And so one of the things that we like is a company called Savant. They do a full automation package. They just released a remote control that has touchscreen, buttons, and voice control. And when you say watch CNN, all the things happen. It's fantastic. It's really well done. And it takes a lot of programming to make it work that way. Gesture-based, right? So some people are familiar with things where they can actually do like the Xbox side, and you can wave your hand, right? It waves back at you, or you can hit a ball, right? So these things haven't quite made it into standard home automation yet, for good reason. What happens when I'm in the bed in the dark? Okay. Let's talk about proximity sensors, right? Because it's kind of tied loosely to interfaces. So what happens when I'm in the bathroom and my proximity sensor realizes I haven't moved in a while, haven't had my bran or something, and my lights go out? I've actually had this happen. I was in a public restroom at a courthouse. I think I was signing over the deed to my house or something. And I went to the restroom. I'm sitting in the stall, and the lights go off. And I'm in pitch black. This is automation, right? And the answer is, don't do things that I don't want to happen. Make the things that I actually do regularly happen more simply. So we use these things very sparingly. We have customers who will tell us, I want to do this, I want to do that. And our pitch to them is always, no you don't. That's a horrible idea. Why? Because we remember the last 10 guys that asked us to do it, and we remember when we were too stupid to tell them no, and then tried to do it. Learn from our mistakes, right? Let's not let you repeat those before you. Who are the players in the home automation space? The graveyard of failed companies who try to do integration, automation, or some form of tie-in is huge. Why? It's expensive. To stay on the front edge of integrating all of these technologies, because we're not just talking about maybe 10 or 12 disciplines, we're talking about 10 or 12 disciplines times hundreds of companies within every discipline. Try and be the company who automates all that. Good luck. So there's actually people like us sitting at a desk programming how those systems function, because that's how complicated it is. But who are the players that have invested the money who are actually still here? Savant, they're actually right here in New York City. They're based up in Massachusetts. Control 4, based in Utah. Crestron, based out in New Jersey. And AMX, which used to be based in Texas, and I'm not sure where they're based now. They were recently acquired. These companies are the 4 main companies who do automation integration. They are the technology that does automation integration. If you go to someone's house who has all of these various technology subsystems, it is likely that they are on that platform. If they are not, they probably have horror stories. And even some of the people on these platforms have horror stories. These are made by humans and they're programmed by humans. And so they're prone to human error. The people that you hire to program your system can fail at it. And so what we like are programs like Savant and Control 4 that actually automatically generate the interface based on the way the systems are configured. Crestron and AMX, on the other hand, primarily are based on highly customized, completely unique, one-off programming. The only people that I know that have ever succeeded in their first attempt at something has been Tesla. Until then, it's always been failures, right? It's always the 3rd or 4th generations that finally make it. Savant and Control 4 seem to be the preeminent guys these days. Crestron is still the 800-pound gorilla. We can talk about the differences between these things, but I'll spare you. And let's talk about pro versus DIY. Hinted on it a little bit. So I grew up in California. Everybody has a car. You can't live without one, right? And I draw this analog. How many of the people change their own oil? The answer is very few. Most don't know how to do it, and it's actually not that complicated. But for those that actually do know how to do it, most would rather pay someone else. Why? Because that time that they could spend doing anything else other than changing their oil was more valuable to them than actually doing it themselves, right? So when we think about this, how much is your time worth? Everybody in here will have a different version of that, right? And in fact, you could actually take your salary, divide it by the number of hours in the week, and figure out exactly what an hour is worth. So once we know that, the answer is, would I like to do all this myself? I can tell you that on an average project for us, we have 4 project managers, 4 technicians, 2 programmers, 2 engineers. Those are people that are actively involved in the project once we sell it and put it out into the field. The average number of hours that goes on one of those projects is over 400 hours of man time, of professional man time. Think about what that means, right? So on a $250,000 or $400,000 project, 400 hours, 250 hours, depending upon the project. And this is stuff you guys want to do at home? It's not doom and gloom, but what I'm saying is keep it simple. Keep your ideas and your expectations of what you want to do at a DIY level simple. When you want to scale it up, when you want to do something highly complex, that's when you come and talk to us, right? And we do these things day in and day out, and our goal is to make a customer never have to call us ever again when we're done. The system stays up and running, it's highly functional, and it does all the things that they need it to do and would desire it to do with none of the stuff that's going to put them into a pitfall. We think that this is really, really crucial. And it's how we keep people from being frustrated. So when people come to us, the first thing we ask them is, would you like us to engineer a system for you? And they go, what do you mean? I just want to bid. Well, what am I bidding on? So our first step is let us engineer something for you. The founder of our company is an electrical engineer. And we actually build a complete doc set with wiring diagrams, floor plans, all of it. That's how we start, because that's what we then bid on. Try and do that in your own home, right? Try and understand just how complex that is. But the jobs, when we're done, look amazing, they're highly functional, and they've got great technology integrated throughout. And so I want to talk about those types of things. I think that this is really where the key is. It's not that you can't do some of this stuff at home. The question is that who you are? Is that where your skill set lies? And is that what you want to spend your time and energy doing? If not, go on a hike, right? Eat a Klondike bar. Let us do the hard work. So with that, I want to say thank you.